Good evening and welcome to this edition of Citizen Live at 9. I am Ann Kiguta. President Uhuru Kenyatta was scheduled to meet with media owners and the Communication Authority officials this evening over the impasse that led to the switching off of the analog signals of Citizen TV, KTN and NTV. The president reportedly directed the media houses and the Communication Authority to meet him with a solution to end the TV blackout that is now in its 5th day. Earlier today, the Senate, through the Legal and Human Rights Committee, called for the reinstatement of the analog signals to the 3 media houses, even as parties discuss other sticky issues surrounding the digital migration.
The migration date, if the houses could actually pass a resolution to say, let's set this for May 30th, because we have actually lost a month. This will accord us a time to have the transmitters in place and the set-top boxes.
Is there a way that this set-top boxes can ever be subsidized highly?
We will make sure that every Mwananchi who is not even able to pay 2,500 shillings cash, a one-off cash for thing, we have made financial arrangements with the Equity Bank so that we can be given a whole year to pay that 2,500 shillings. So everybody then moves. That is what digital migration is about. Having access to the television is not just switching off the analog to the digital. Our box will have the capacity for 3G, 4G. It will have Wi-Fi capability. It will, therefore, people can access internet, and it will also have hotspot.
If we have a latitude up to 17th of June, what is this obsession that you get out of the Supreme Court and immediately and go and switch off?
We suspect, because there is a lot of wickedness around there must be a hand that is pushing all these things, because what we are reading is that we are all being pushed to go to PAN, because we suspect without PAN carrying the 3 media houses, their content, they don't have a business model. They cannot survive. And therefore we have to be forced by every imaginable means to take our content there so that they can survive. Okay?
I know for certain that international airlines can be negotiated.
The laws of the land require that if you are going to come into the broadcasting sector or in the signal distribution sector, 30% of ownership of that company must be Kenyan. The company that won that tender is PAN, which is a Chinese-owned company.
Have you established right now that there is that local ownership? And if there is, do you have an idea who could, this local ownership be?
There are some inferences about, perhaps, I don't know how they have, because I've not been able to verify, and so this cannot be taken as gospel truth, about some local ownership which are registered, I think, in the island of Gazi or someplace. So there's still some opaqueness around it. I always find it very difficult. If you are doing a clean business, why do you need to hide your identity?
In the UK, when there was one person who refused to move, one woman, old lady in part of the UK, and Mr. Macharia knows about this, they had to go, the regulator had to go and persuade the lady to switch over analog television. It's a government issue. It's a movement.
The UK took 14 years to migrate. Sweden took 8 years to migrate. Spain, 10 years to migrate. Finland, 6 years to migrate. Switzerland, 6 years to migrate. Netherlands, 9 years to migrate. France, 6 years to migrate. Here, we are migrating within 3 hours. From the time the letter came from the CAK to switch off everybody, we are migrating within 3-year period, whatever it is.
Just focus on the 30th or whatever. So we shall try our best on that day, let it remain. But until then, let's go back to analog so that the people of Kenya can have access, as it is their right, to have access to information, to see TV, to radio, and so on. As you sort out these other matters.
To corruption matters now, IEBC Chairman Ahmed Issa Hassan was today grilled by the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission over allegations that he received bribes to influence the awarding of the tender to supply ballot papers to a British firm, Smith & Osman, in the infamous Chicken Gate scam. Now, Hassan maintains that he was innocent of the graft allegations linked to his tenure as the chairman of the defunct Interim Independent Electoral Commission. Francis Kashuri tells us more.
The electoral body's boss was the first top official from the defunct Interim Independent Electoral Commission (IEC) to be summoned by the anti-graft team over alleged corruption to facilitate the issuance of a tender to a British printing firm, Smith & Usman.
Yes. Yeah.
The 50 million shillings bribe codenamed Chicken was alleged to have been shared between Hassan, the then IEC commissioners Davis Chirchir, Ken Nyaundi and Joseph Dena, as well as the immediate former IEBC Chief Electoral Officer James Oswago, and procured through a broker known as James Oyombra. But Hassan has told the anti-graft agency that he knew nothing about the scam.
Just because you have made up your mind, as some media houses, to convict us in the court of public opinion, doesn't mean that we are guilty. I am myself innocent of all these allegations. I've been taken through the mud by some of the media houses. I feel very bad about it. I hope that these investigations will vindicate me.
A London court last week jailed two directors of Smith & Usman Company 18 months and 3 years respectively after finding them guilty of bribing IEC officials to secure a tender to print ballot papers. It is on the strength of that conviction that Hassan's critics, among them opposition chief Raila Odinga and the CORD Alliance, have demanded the immediate disbandment of the electoral body.
Why do they have to wait? This is a crime committed here in Kenya by Kenyan officials. They say that in a corruption, there's always a giver and a receiver and a taker. The giver gave because it was demanded by the taker in exchange for awarding a contract. Now the giver has been punished. It will be most unfortunate. It will be a very strong statement of the integrity of this government if the taker goes scot-free. So Mr. Hassan should not be allowed to be making a statement of his innocence. Nobody expects a thief to confess his guilt.
We were not accused or suspects in London. The accused in London were the two Muzungus and the agent in UK. No Kenyan was an accused person. Neither are we a co-accused. We are not called to give evidence. We are not called to give statements. So it's not, I think, correct, Francis, to say because somebody was jailed in UK, the same should apply to Kenyans here. I think those people have been given a fair trial. They were investigated. They were called. They gave their statements. They got a lawyer. They defended themselves, and they were found guilty by a court of law. I think similarly, it's not fair, it's not too much to ask from the media in Kenya to allow those who are being adversely mentioned to go through a due process and fair trial.
CORD insists that IEBC under Hassan's leadership cannot be trusted as an impartial arbiter in the 2017 general election and want a new team set up before the polls. But Hassan, whose term ends in November 2017, remains put.
We'll cross that bridge when we reach there. Thank you very much.
Chirchir and Oswago are expected tomorrow at Integrity Center to shed light on the Chicken Gate scandal. Francis Gashuri, Citizen TV, online edition.
A chief in Kitui County found himself in trouble after he was allegedly found in a compromising position with a married woman. Malili Sub-Location Assistant Chief Kithome Kilonzo was locked together with the said woman in a house where they apparently spent the entire night. They were locked by arid villagers who accused them of having a secret love affair. The two, however, were rescued by police officers who prevented the mob that was baying for his blood from attacking them.
Tayari kufungua maripoti. Mimi yuko tayari kumfungua kama mzee wangu anjakuja njoo za yenye alipigiwa simu alisema ng'ombe mbuzi pesa zenye alipeana kwetu.
It was a spectacle. They all wanted a piece of after word went round that their assistant chief Kithome Kilonzo was allegedly caught red-handed in a clandestine love affair with a married woman, Mary Sumbilu. It was why the crowd waited outside the woman's home in Malili Sub-Location, Kitui County, baying for his blood. And it would take the intervention of police led by Kitui OCPD to calm the situation. It all began on Wednesday night when some of the villagers trailed the assistant chief to Mary's home, where they locked them in the house overnight. And when daybreak came, they returned with the intent of taking matters into their own hands. The assistant chief and the woman defended themselves, claiming they were on official business. He needed her to sign for MOMBASA reforms for his children, as Mary is reportedly an official in the Kitui Central Constituency Development Fund.
Amepata kama nimewakisha hata niko kwa hapo sitting nikisoma Bible. Si kumfungulia hivi mlango ikanjirudisha kiasi. Sasa kama saa yenye alipata hiyo form moja kujaza ikakuja mlango tukasikia imefungwa na nje. Sasa akaniuliza na nini? Nikamuuliza kwani ulikuja na akina nani ndio tufungiwe na nje? Akaniambia hakuna mtu amekuja naye.
Na madam mwenyewe ni uchochezi walifanya ukora na watu wengine nifungie nje naye afunge ndani. Wakati niliendelea kumwekea hizo forms.
But the villagers would hear none of it, however, accusing them of a long-term affair, and they wanted the assistant chief slapped with 100,000 shillings fine to serve as compensation and goodwill to Mary's husband.
Siwezi nikakwambia mbele yako.
Kwa hivyo chochote kile wanataka, kama wanataka, niko guilty. Twende kotini, tuongee huko.
Police say they are investigating the matter with a view of preferring charges against the guilty party.
The nominee to the Inspector General of Police Service, Joseph Kipchirchir Boynet, may be sworn into office without being vetted by Parliament if a Senate standoff is not resolved before the 14th day window that is set to vet him and lapses. A joint vetting committee of the Senate and the National Assembly is yet to vet the nominee after the Senate Minority Leader Moses Wetangula raised questions on the legality of the joint committee under Section 9 of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act. If the 14 days lapse without Parliament approving or rejecting the nomination, then the candidate will be deemed approved for appointment. Now, Parliament has up to the 3rd of March to vet Boynet. Senate Speaker Ekwe Othuro, however, instructed the Standing Committee on Legal Affairs to interrogate the timelines and the timetable, the timelines, I beg your pardon, and then report back to him in 21 days.
On the 21 days, that is the period where I am giving the committee in terms of taking the matter forward for further interrogation. It is not affecting the 14 days period of vetting the existing nominee. It's an admission that given the 14 days, the need for Parliament to work within 14 days, given the bicameral system, this was a one-off thing given the circumstances. I have stated it is not a precedent. We could have gone even the other way if we had the time.
Mr. Speaker, I would not, Mr. Speaker, want to encourage this House to start even where the Constitution, the little that the Constitution has given us, we wish it away and subordinate ourselves to the National Assembly. Mr. Speaker, it will not be right.
I'm just getting worried because we do not want this House or the House of Parliament to act in futility. Mr. Speaker, sir, in this era where Kenyans are very enlightened, we risk that Kenyans somewhere will rush to court that we have acted against our own standing orders, Mr. and the Constitution, Mr. Speaker.
Now, members of Parliament will no longer enjoy the generous trappings that go with diplomatic passports. This follows the Department of Immigration's revision of a list of Kenyans who are entitled to the passports that confer a raft of privileges, including VIP treatment whenever they travel out of the country. And as Alex Kubasu reports, MPs can apply for the vital document, which will now be issued on merit.
Being a guest of any state one travels to comes along with the trappings of power and VIP treatment. And even as you partake the diplomatic functions courtesy of the diplomatic passport one holds. But for Kenyan members of both the National Assembly and the Senate, this privilege has been withdrawn after their names were struck off from the list of those to enjoy these privileges. This includes leaders of majority in both the Senate and the National Assembly, as well as chairmen of departmental committees. Those included in the new list are governors and their spouses, former Prime Minister Raila Odinga and his spouse, former vice presidents and their spouses, and 28 other senior officials of government. However, not all is lost, as MPs and other deserving Kenyans can apply for the passport. This will, however, be subject to thorough vetting. Once the passports are issued, the bearers must apply for diplomatic visas, although some countries allow people to travel visa-free with diplomatic passports. Persons holding diplomatic passports are, however, not entitled to diplomatic immunity. Alex Kubasu, Citizen Live at 9.
Well, President Uhuru Kenyatta has called on local manufacturers to ensure benefits of lower power costs are passed over to the consumers. He was speaking in Naivasha at the commissioning of the 140 megawatts geothermal 4 power plant.
The commissioning of the second phase of the all-carrier 4 geothermal plant marks a successful completion of the 280 megawatts project of geothermal power into the national grid. Together with 20 megawatts of wind power, 300 megawatts of clean energy have been injected into the national grid between October and January this year. As a result, the cost of power generation has significantly reduced over the last 4 months, a trajectory that has seen the cost of electricity reduced by 30% over the same period. And now the president wants these changes to lower the cost of living through cheaper commodity prices.
We call on all producers to work with commitment and to begin to pass the benefits of this reduction to consumers. This is critical.
Something that industry players are giving a note to, saying it's only a matter of time before these changes are effected.
Going forward, this year, we say 2015, we should be seeing a downward trend immediately. And I think this is important to note. This is a statement even from private sector, even from manufacturers, to say we are committed to make sure that prices come down, cost of living comes down.
But according to Rwanda's President Paul Kagame, cheaper commodity prices and their sustainability are better brought about through comprehensive dialogue amongst stakeholders.
I propose that we always need to have a conversation between the government, industry and the business, and actually the citizen, because we shouldn't have a situation where one will just assume everything is okay or dictate terms to the others.
With an estimated generation capacity of 1,600 megawatts against a recorded demand of at least 1,400 megawatts, Kenya is gradually cementing its position as a preferred investment destination.
East Africa is now the epicenter of a continental takeoff. Famous global brands are rushing to pitch tent in East Africa to take advantage of the growth underway and in anticipation of the culmination of the transformation.
Kenya targets to have an installed capacity of 5,000 megawatts of power by 2017. Patrick Egunza, Citizen TV.
To some unfortunate news, 4 people died and 2 others were injured in a road accident that occurred Thursday morning at Jomvu in Mombasa County. The accident occurred when a matatu headed to Miritini rammed into a lorry parked by the roadside. The matatu driver is being sought after he fled the scene. The injured are still admitted at the Coast General Hospital.
Hii ajali manake mimi imenihusu kidogo. Kuna shemegi yangu ni mmoja waliofariki kwa hiyo ajali. Alikuwa amekaa mbele pamoja na dereva.
The University of Eldoret has been closed indefinitely because of security concerns after a series of demos that paralyzed learning at the institution. The closure comes a day after Uasin Gishu Senator Isaac Meli was injured while leading protests against Vice-Chancellor Teresa Akenga, accusing her of biased appointments. The Vice-Chancellor has since denied the claims. And that's where we wind up this edition of Citizen Live at 9. Thank you for watching. Enjoy the rest of your viewing.